Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of the Mount Fuji in Spring Cherry Blossom wall art painting. Where we left off in part 1 was we just finished up the clouds, or at least mostly finished them, and now we're going to move on to the actual Mount Fuji and then start we're working on the lowlands and see as far as we can get in this particular episode. Part 2. So the color I'm using here, it's just a navy blue, but I think because it went on kind of thin and ended up looking kind of purple, so you mix the dark blue with a little white, it somehow came out this weird dark purplish color, so I'll probably have to blend in some more, maybe just blue mixed with some black to bring it up to the dark blue color that I was meaning to put in there, but that's fine. I mean, I can do a bunch of layering. It makes it look a little bit better, so I'm not too worried about it. And here I'm still using my 3-inch brush just to do the majority of the paint spread. I'll probably go back through later and I'll do a dry brush to try to fade the blue purple-ish color and the white together, because they kind of, I don't know if you can see in the video later, but it kind of looks too contrasted, like it doesn't like fade together. So I'm gonna have to fix that later on. And here I was just starting to add the white in there, but because the navy blue color was still kind of wet, it was blending a little bit. So I probably should have waited a little bit more for it to dry. But in the end, I mean, I'm gonna have to do a bunch of blending and add more colors and more texture to it anyway. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not too worried about it. And one of the things I liked about Mount Fuji is that it's almost like the quintessential mountain. Just that angle, just going up and then back down. Doesn't look like the Rocky Mountains or something or another mountain. It's just that, you know. Simple and yet just beautiful. So here I ended up adding some really dark blue. It was way too dark for what I wanted, so I ended up just fixing this in the end off camera. You know, I mean, you'll see at the end, or right after this, not the end, obviously, but right after this, when I'm done with it, you'll see I'll just fix it. It'll be a lighter blue, and the white gets faded back in a little bit better. And right around here, I started adding a lighter blue to the bottom, try to build up a little bit of like a haze fade. And just like underneath the mountains, they kind of get faded, but again, it was still too dark. And here's where I fixed the actual colors. It looks a little bit brighter. It also looks better when you look at like a photo or something of Mount Fuji. So here I realized I really didn't like how the colors worked out. The snow didn't look right. The mountain didn't look right at all. So I basically repainted the snow, fixed the colors on the mountain, and then added these like highlight hills. You can kind of see the slightly brighter greenish blue against the actual backdrop of the mountain. And then after that, started working on the rest of the scenery. And I like to say this is probably like the coldest day we've had here. There's episode 2. Yeah, it was freezing in my garage. Oh no. Well, unintentional face reveal. All right, we'll have to watch out for that in the future. Anyway, yeah, it snowed last night. This is February 21st, so it snowed last night, which is rare for this particular area. It's cold as hell this morning. So basically what I was doing is I was just adding different layers of green. There's very dark blue, black, green on there for the tops of the hills. So they're fading into the background a bit, and then it fades down to like a normal, I guess, leaf green color. And then threw a bunch of yellow in there to give the highlights. You'll see that later. Now with this piece, or this whole project, I've been fighting with the concept. Do I put a lot of detail into the background that's going to get covered over with cherry blossoms, or do I just kind of suggest things being there? So I think what I determined in the end is I was trying to do a mix of that. Try to do as much detail as I could without spending so much time doing it. Like the highlights on the mountain, like those hills, they originally weren't there, but I think they make it pop a little bit more, or make it look like it's a little bit more depth and a little bit more of a 3D thing, not just paint on a canvas. And right around here, I was going to start throwing a little bit more yellow and bright green in there. Try to give it a little bit more contrast, a little bit more realism for where the light falls. And I think it turned out fairly well. I think I need to get a bigger palette, something that's big and flat, probably just a piece of wood with a hole in it, instead of the ones I have. The ones I have are plastic and they work really well, but the paint kind of gets stuck in the little depressions that are in it. And I think I just need something bigger. I can just whip together more paint and just use like this 3-inch brush to spread a lot more of it versus constantly have to go back and just use an edge. Though I will say the 3-inch brush made this spread a lot easier and the blend better with the lighter green to the darker green. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of color blending, trying to add some highlights in different spots and some darker spots in other areas. Try to make it look a little bit more realistic, like the colors fade out or fade in. So here I kind of got ahead of myself and started putting in some foliage when I really should have done a proper fade up for Mount Fuji. So I'm pretty much gonna end up redoing this later in the video, but at least it gave me an idea of where I needed to put everything. All I'm really doing is using, like, I don't remember what that brush is called, but I call it my feather brush, and just kind of dabbing on dark paints. Well, dark green mixed with black and some other colors just to bring out that really dark, contrasted color. Now, I'm not really so worried about the details of this foliage back here, because when I put in those cherry blossoms, it's going to end up kind of covering over much of the green and pretty much all those, you know, silhouetted trees. And all throughout, I kept using a mixture of this really dark, almost black green mixed with a lighter, still dark green, and then, you know, I try to keep those colors really low, so there was a little bit more contrast, a little bit more depth to that backside foliage, even though it's kind of be masked over by the cherry blossoms. But I think in the end, it kind of made it look a little bit more realistic. And one thing I should have done here is changed how these two slopes kind of come down, because they kind of look too similar to each other, and it's harder to keep it looking natural when there's two of these both curved slopes going in the same direction, and then I have to like blend in all these different tree elements. And here I'm just adding a little bit of yellow, trying to bring up a little bit more highlight and contrast. Try to be a little bit more subtle in the background slopes, just because they're farther away, but up close, obviously I can go a little bit heavier. And here, I wasn't happy with the mountain still. So here I'm adding some highlight colors, some streaks and little swiggle lines, just to try to emphasize that there's different formations, different textures on the side of the mountain, you know, like how it would be in reality. So you remember when I told you I needed to go back in and do the kind of like the mist or fog fade up from the bottom of the mountain? Well, I did that off screen because, I mean, it was simple. And now I'm just going to add all that foliage back, which I should have done the fade up before I did the foliage and the rest of the painting. But hey, whatever, lessons learned. I am not infallible, so hopefully this looks better than it did before to you all. Well, that about does it for this episode. I'm reaching my video limit, or at least video space limit on the phone. So, thank you all for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that. I appreciate it. It helps me out, helps keep the wife happy, because this is literally the painting she's been asking for like the last year or some change. All the other ones were practice kind of for this, but hopefully I do it well. Anyway, thank you. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.